And welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated businesses, cryptocurrency, or even multifamily properties. I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business minds in the world, where they share their ideas and deal stories. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. We're going to be talking about all things launching your multifamily business. With this particular guest, for about 4 years ago, he came to the realization that the traditional path of working the 9 to 5 or being stuck in what's called the rat race and saving in a 401k until he was 65 was not the road to wealth that he wanted to follow. So after studying various asset classes, he came to realize the power of multifamily real estate for generating wealth. And since then, he has acquired 32 units and maybe a little bit more, and dedicated himself to helping others learn more about the incredible potential of the multifamily asset class. Please welcome to the show with me, Shawn. Sorry, Shawn, say the last name again.
Dimartile, but that's okay. Most people don't get it right the first time. Yeah, Dimartile.
Shawn Dimartile. He's out of sunny San Diego. And by the way, he is the host of the Multifamily Takeoff podcast. You can find more about Shawn and his team at multifamilytakeoff.com. But before we get too much into the show, Shawn, could you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, so I started as an air traffic controller. I've been an air traffic controller for 10 years now. That's been my day job, and I still haven't quite quit the job yet. I'm very close. But I came across real estate from a friend of mine who was a realtor, and I was looking for areas to invest my money outside of my 401k. To make a long story short, like a lot of others, I started with books and podcasts, everything from Cash Flow Quadrant to the Bigger Pocket stuff. And I really went down deep into the rabbit hole and got really into it. And it didn't take long for me to realize that multifamily was much more scalable and could really get me to much greater heights than one single family at a time. So with my very first property purchase, I liquidated my 401k with a couple of partners and bought a 32 unit in Indiana. Today, we actually have 182 units, and we have another 145 units that we're adding on to that's under contract as of today in Greensboro, North Carolina. So our focus is on value add multifamily properties. We like to find properties that need some renovations on the inside and outside, maybe have some operational inefficiencies. We like to go in, fix them up, increase rents, increase the bottom line, provide cash flow for ourselves and our investors, and a really big payout when we sell the property.
Amazing. Shawn Dimartile, and you can learn more about him at the multifamilytakeoff.com. All right, Sancho, let's dive right into the show. What's the biggest kept secret when it comes to launching your multifamily business?
Ooh, the biggest kept secret that I think the biggest bit of advice I'd give to anybody is to find yourself some type of a mentor or some type of a partner. I think that's really the secret to hurdling your way towards the front of the line. If you try to do this alone, and it's possible, but it's going to take you much, much, much longer. I think that my partners and I were able to expedite our way to getting these large properties. Like, I told you I got 145 units under contract. And I think that, just for the simple fact that there's huge barriers to entry in this business, you can skip all over those by working your way into a relationship with somebody, by providing them with some kind of value and leveraging their experience to help you grow your business. So I think anybody that wants to jump into this business, that's the biggest secret right there. And most people that you'll see in this business that might be like the face of it, like they might have their own podcast, or they might be a really big name on Instagram that you know of. They have a whole team of people, and they started out with partners and mentors. Most of them did to begin with. So I think that's the biggest secret in this business is to leverage other people.
Excellent. Very well said. And I went a little bit out of order for our listeners because you're an air traffic controller, which is kind of unique. I don't think we've had one of those on a show yet. So, I believe we've all been getting certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given us to be a blessing and help to others. So some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. I think they're God-given gifts. So I'm curious, what's the one or two gifts you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today? In particular, how does that apply to being an air traffic controller?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Asking me to toot my own horn, but I would say that the thing that I have that's one of my best qualities in gifts is work ethic. And I just have a constant drive and ability to work constantly. Um, I feel like I'm an animal sometimes with the kind of hours that I'm willing to put in. So I think that that fits into just about any industry, including air traffic control, because when I started in that business, it's a very cutthroat business where a lot of people wash out and don't make it. You have to do a lot of studying and memorize a lot of material to make it in that job. So it requires a very strong work ethic. And then translating that into real estate in the multifamily space, it's a grind to build your own business and be an entrepreneur. I mean, in the beginning, you're doing everything, and I'm still doing everything and wearing a lot of hats. So it requires intense work ethic to get your business off the ground. It's like a rocket ship, is what I like to say, where the power jets off and it takes it a couple seconds before it gets off the ground and then for it to really pick up speed. So I think work ethic is really my strongest suit, because even if I don't fully understand something or don't have the experience with it, I'm willing to put in the work to go learn it and make it happen.
Excellent. Yeah, very well said. The constant drive to work ethic, and then be willing to grind to take the rocket ship off the ground, and so very cool. All right, so we covered the first secret, which is kind of finding mentors or partners to partner with, and then the next maybe the next biggest hurdle that helped you maybe even go from 32 units for maybe a year ago to where you're at now. What's been the biggest shift in strategy, process, system, or secret?
I think that the biggest thing for continuing the growth, the biggest secret is constantly putting yourself out there in whatever way you can. You've got to keep yourself busy and in front of people, because to scale in a business like multifamily investing in apartments, you have to continuously be raising capital from investors. And in order to do that, you have to continuously be growing your investor base. In most cases, you're not going to be able to go to the same people back to back to back to back for another 50,000. So in order to do that, my main focus has been doing lots of podcasts, our own podcast, and advertising that, getting the word out of what we're doing, what we're trying to teach people how to do, going to as many local real estate meetups as I possibly can, um, being really active on social media with things like Instagram or LinkedIn, and even recently TikTok, which has really surprised me with the engagement on that. But really just put all hands on deck to get in front of as many faces as humanly possible, because the more people we attract, the more traffic we get to our content, the more interest we can drive up in our business and potentially bring in more investors. So that's been really, digital marketing, all of that stuff is really the next secret.
Phenomenal. Love it. All right. So maybe you can tell us about maybe it's in credit investors, little plug here, right? Make sure you're accredited, but maybe you can talk to us about maybe a current offering or current deal, or maybe even a past deal. You want to plug something right now?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. We do have a current deal that we're working on getting all the materials together for, and it will be a 506c raise, so accredited investors only are able to participate. But it's going to be a really great deal in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's our bread and butter value add deal, 1970s vintage, that we're going to take and completely renovate the interiors. All the outdoor amenities are going to be updated, including adding things like a dog park. We have on-site management that our partners in CoGP are vertically integrated with. So that also gives us a little bit of a competitive advantage, but this is going to be very robust returns, double-digit IRR, double-digit cash-on-cash returns year over year. So, if anybody out there is interested in things like that, if that meets their criteria, they can always go to our website, pack3capital.com, and they can, click the contact us button and reach out. And we're always willing to bring people on and show them our deals.
Phenomenal. So Joe Biden has some big news for real estate investors.
That's true.
Mr. Shawn and Mr. Brett too. I'm saying, and Mr. All of our listeners and gals are listening out there too. He wants to change the game, right? Some commercial. I call it the game-changing potential tax laws eliminating the stepped up basis, eliminating the 1031 exchange, doubling the capital gains tax federal rate. But also this thing that's kind of sneaky that maybe people aren't necessarily looking at unless they're in the business like you. It's a thing called carried interest, right? Where as a general partner doing the sweat equity, you get a thing called carried interest. You want to explain what that is, and are you familiar with what Biden is proposing to do?
I'm actually not familiar with what Biden is proposing to do, so I'm curious if you could explain it to me so I can understand better. Because I was aware of the 1031 going out, and I was aware of the doubling of the capital gains tax proposal. So I knew that the tax advantages were kind of dwindling. I know that you could still refinance your properties and avoid deferred taxes in that sense. But what is this? What is he doing with this other move?
Yeah, so I'm reading it here, and I want to make sure I get it right. Biden's plans would eliminate private equity's coveted tax break, right? So private equity's most lucrative tax break is the pearl once is not the pearl it used to be. Essentially, what he's thinking about doing is taking away or permanently eliminating carried interest is what he's talking about, and making it ordinary income, right? So let's see, Congress to abolish the preferential treatment given to a key method of compensation for private equity managers. In addition to salaries, these managers rely especially on a share of appreciation in the assets they once oversee, known as carried interest. Those profits, sometimes in the millions of dollars, have been taxed as capital gains at a much lower rate than the top marginal income tax rate applied to wages. So essentially, he's taking it and he's converting it from capital gains tax treatment to ordinary income tax,
Oh
which
wow.
the way I've looked at this, it's de-incentivizing people to hit it out of the park, right? Because they're going to get taxed more, maybe do less deals. Essentially, it's just not as great as it used to be.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because that's essentially if it's going to be taxed as ordinary income and you're in a 30% tax bracket as opposed to maybe the 15% capital gains tax, we're right back to this whole doubling of your tax burden on your profits. So that's going to be a huge. I'm curious though if because I also know that the bonus depreciation is going to be phasing out in the years to come. So that's going to be another tool of ours taken away. So I wonder what the repercussions of that are going to be. I think that in the multifamily space that could hurt it in the sense that there's going to be a lot fewer deals. It's going to be much harder to make it pencil out. Um, and it's definitely going to be hurting the investors. I think that overall, though, that's going to end up hurting a lot of the people they don't intend to hurt because these tools are here for us because it allows the average middle class American to grow a business like that or invest in something like this so that they can try to become wealthy. And now, if you take that away, you're making it twice as hard as somebody to better themselves, in my opinion.
100%. Let alone you're taking 1970s vintage, and you're doing a complete renovation. You're improving the community. You're making it safer, more a better housing environment for tenants that are on the ground, right? And
Absolutely.
unless we're incentivizing real estate investors to do this work's not going to get done, or it's not going to get done as much, or is to the level that they could, right? Because they want to maximize their return, which means they want to make this thing as valuable and as attractive as possible. Any thoughts on that?
No, I agree 100% because at the end of the day, this kind of business, as you've alluded to, it's a win-win situation for both parties. Um, and if there isn't an incentive for someone to go in and renovate those properties in order to give themselves a return, then why would they do it? They don't want to do it as a sense of a charity. If the properties, obviously, they will keep the community in a good working order and they'll take care of the property. But the property is not going to get as many improvements if there's not some type of an incentive there. I think it's as black and white as that. So
Yeah.
you'll definitely see less money being funneled into things like that because yeah, that's just going to
Which
be a
goes
nice
into the next
result.
one. Yeah, exactly right. Which goes into the next one. She's taking away the 1031 exchange. So even if he does take it away or limit that, what's been the biggest frustration for you, Shawn, as a multifamily syndicator when it comes to the 1031 exchange?
Well, my biggest frustration with the 1031 exchange as a syndicator is that it's already difficult for people if they want to 1031 their own property and then invest as a passive investor in a syndication. It becomes very difficult to do that unless you do what's called a tenants in common situation, which can be very complicated. And in almost all scenarios, you're not going to do that. Um, but what frustrates me as a multifamily investor with like my own properties, if I want to do a 1031 exchange, I have that time variable that's there. And that's always been my biggest gripe with the 1031 exchange. And when you're in a market like today, where it's really difficult to find good deals and you could look for up to a year before you find the one you want to strike on. Having a certain number of months to identify the property you want to purchase really puts you in an unfavorable time constraint. That's always been one of my biggest gripes with the 1031 overall. But with them taking away the 1031 exchange now, it's going to definitely factor into your calculus on what your exit strategy is going to be on your property, no matter what. I mean, they're taking away so much, though. It seems like one of the only strategies left. I'm not sure if the strategy that you talk about on your show a lot would still be a possible strategy, but then the only other one left I could think of is doing a cash out refinance and just holding the property longer.
Yeah, no. So you're right. The deferred sales trust is a solution alternative for failed 1031 exchanges or just altogether making time your friend, right? So you can sell,
Right.
defer the tax, pay off the debt, wait on the sidelines, go back in as passive or active. You don't have to do tenant and commons. Very, very friendly for syndicators. But the diversification piece is a big part of that too, right? Because we don't want to sell high and use a 1031 just to buy higher 180 days later with more debt and less opportunity and less value add. That's what happened in 08,
Great
09,
point.
010, or I'm sorry, 05, 06, 07 before the crash in 08, and people really got hurt up until 2011 because they had to fight the debt. So, yeah, so there's a number of ways to look at it. I mean, there's also opportunity zones. They do have that. Hopefully, they keep that intact, right? Because
Mhm.
there are some opportunities there. Um, but you certainly want to make sure you have an exit plan here. And then, yeah, if you never sell, right, and then just cash out refi and buy more, that's also a good strategy, right?
Mhm.
However, for commercial real estate syndicators, they're typically incentivized on the outcome of it. So they improve the property early, put all the sweat equity, all of their value add expertise, and then they get paid on the back end 3 to 5 years out, whatever, right? So that's
Correct.
you kind of disincentivize them on that, which kind of goes towards people who are kind of the rich get richer because then they can collect the monopoly chips and just buy more and more and more. So lots of ways we can kind of go down this place. The last one I'll
That's a
leave you is
great
a
point.
stepped up basis, Shawn. I don't know if you're familiar that Biden is considering taking away the stepped up basis, right? Where upon death, essentially your heirs, the tax is triggered and there's no step
Oh,
up
that's right.
basis. Not only is it there's no step up basis, but the tax is actually triggered. So that's what he's proposing. So like, who knows if they know how to sell it or if there's multiple siblings? It doesn't matter. Like you die and let's say your wife dies, stepped up basis is not there, and they need the tax. You're like, wait, so you're forcing me to sell. So we'll see if this stuff actually passes, guys. Like we don't know. There's still a lot to be had, but just know that these are the things that are on the table, and it's not good for real estate investors.
It's definitely not. And I would be furious if I worked my lifetime to have a legacy to pass on to my heirs. And that's what they did to them as soon as the money went to their hands. They dipped their big paws in there and ripped out a huge chunk of it. That's infuriating, but that's a definite real possibility.
Yeah, so just be aware of it. So, by the way, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We have the deferred sales trust that we believe is a clear solution for all of those challenges, and and you can learn about how to use that. In fact, we just did a deal in Vegas for a multifamily syndicator like you. Sold a $20 million asset. He and his partner, two GPs, some other LPs, they used it for their deferred sales trust, their funds for that, and then they used another one in Phoenix, sold a $16 million deal, moved that into the deferred sales trust, and they used those funds to go buy their next part of their next asset. And we're going to have a cryptocurrency mastermind, and they're going to come and talk to that on Monday, because you can also now sell crypto, defer tax, and buy multifamily properties with it, which is all tax deferred, by the way, using the deferred sales trust. So we're talking about all of
Wow.
those things coming up on Friday. So if you're listening to the show right now, we're doing it every Friday at 10 a.m. PST. Come and join us, bring a client, bring a friend, and learn a little bit about tax, because it's no longer about cash flow quadrant. What I like to say, Shawn, it's actually about the tax flow quadrant, right?
That's a
We're no
good,
longer just
yes.
managing cash flow, dude. We got to manage tax. And when is our tax going to be paid? How much is going to be paid? What's the planning? Because again, these government laws, they want to take their big paw and they want to just grab it as much as they can. So, all that being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's go.
All right, knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, Shawn, what is the one golden nugget you make sure to tell yourself to do?
That's an easy one. Start earlier. Go out and buy your first multifamily property, no matter how big it is, buy it immediately. Because if I would have bought that when I was 25 years old, where the market's at now, I would have quit my job a long time ago.
Beautiful. Second question, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Ooh, number one book I would have to say is Multifamily Millions by David Lindahl. That was one of the ones that got me started, and I always recommend that to people that are really interested in multifamily investing.
Excellent. Third question, favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Ooh, think of the person that you want to be and start acting like that person right now.
Perfect. Biggest challenge you and your partners are facing right now in your business?
Finding good deals, easy. That's just by far the hardest thing to do. Everybody is overvaluing their multifamily properties. The cap rates continue to get compressed and compressed. So we have to get extremely creative to find deals through relationships off market, and that's really hard. And like finding a needle in a haystack. So that's going to continue to be the biggest issue for us.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Biggest opportunity that you see in your business?
The biggest opportunity I see is actually in buying. Well, this is going to get a little bit away from multifamily, but just in the commercial space, is in buying small boutique motels or hotels and converting it into a nice Airbnb property. That's some things I'm working on some things right now in that ballpark. I think that there's going to be buying opportunities in small motels and vacation destinations. And I think Airbnb is the platform that can take it to new heights. I'm a huge believer in Airbnb and the cash flow that it provides. So I think there's going to be some cool opportunities there.
Love it. Fantastic. Second to last question. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm most curious. I'm probably most curious about a lot of things that a lot of people are listening are curious about. I'm curious about what's going to happen with the market over the next 2 to 3 years. I think it's going to keep going up. But I mean, with how quickly it's risen, it's going to be an interesting next 24 to 36 months. I'm also really curious what the ramifications of whatever tax laws do pass are going to be on the real estate investing space. I think it's going to definitely bring a hammer down on it, and I'm going to be interested in seeing what that result is going to be.
As are we. But very well said. Last question for you, Shawn. Is this after succeeding as an air traffic controller, almost retiring from that, buying
Right.
multifamily, having your podcast, helping people create and preserve more wealth through real estate investing? How do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new goals?
Ooh. I think really family is one of the main things. I think about my family and where we've come from and how I want to lift up my family to new heights and be able to take care of all of my family. And so thinking back on that is something that really keeps me centered, keeps me focused, and keeps me striving to do greater and greater things.
Amazing. Hey, I want to encourage you, Shawn, to keep using the gifts that you've been given to bless other people and to help people create and preserve more wealth by having a constant work ethic, right, and drive to succeed and to help others. And for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, could you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
Please you can reach out directly to my email, Shawn at pack3capital.com. You can visit our website, pack3capital.com. You could find me on TikTok making multifamily how-to videos, Shawn Pack3Capital, and any of those will work.
Beautiful. Shawn Dimartile, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being here. I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to exit your real estate and to get an alternative to the Biden tax plan. If he takes away the 1031 or the stepped up basis, get with us today. It's a 25-year track record, thousands of closes, billions under management. We've closed 7 deals in the last 45 days alone, and it works for cryptocurrency. Unbelievable, right? I know, but come and learn about it. It is real. It works. We want to help you. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Please rate, review, subscribe. We so appreciate you out there in the iTunes world, Spotify, YouTube. The likes, the shares, the tags, they all help. Please rate, review, subscribe.